Alright, hello and welcome back to my tile-based system in Unity tutorial. Today we're going to be working on sort of like creating stuff in-game in the world and like modifying the tile grid to reflect that. So just an example, I've created a little building creator. So if we click the building here, we'll see that if we're not on the grid, it'll go red, so saying we can't place it. And if we are on the grid, it'll be white so that we can. So place that building. And you can see it places it, and the tiles that are made unwalkable because the building is placed there has been marked as have been changed colour to turquoise, just to show you. And one thing you'll notice is that if we're too close to the building, that we can't actually build it, because to make sure that like you're not going to break the game, we you just when you're placing the building, it makes sure that there's a ring of tiles around it so that the NPCs and whatever can navigate. So if I just keep clicking here, here, and say one here, and whatever, one here, here, and press R, you'll see that they navigate around it. Isn't that good? Alright, and now we will see how to do this. Okay, so the first one we've added is an enumerator, which basically is a selection of 4 options where they control what we're going to select. So either tiles, units, creating buildings, or just selecting buildings, basically. We store that in a selection mode, public selecting mode, selection mode here, and you can see it in the inspector. Here on the main camera, where I can select, alright, we want to select tiles then, so press start, and if we go to creating buildings, then we can click building, make buildings, whatever. Okay, and the reason we've done this is just to select more, just basically make it more flexible for selection, so you can't accidentally select tiles when you want to select buildings or vice versa or whatever. And to reflect this, we have changed the update function. So now we check for, alright, are we selecting tiles? If so, we do the tile check for left mouse click. But if we're on creating buildings, we check for creating buildings, left mouse click. And yeah. And the reason I've changed the name of left mouse click is basically just to make it easier to read. So it's the same method as before that was just check from the left mouse click. But now we have tiles on because it's specifically used for selecting tiles, whereas this one's used for creating buildings and does something different. So yeah. All right, so now we're on to the checking for left mouse click for creating buildings. So basically, what we're doing in this method is basically we're checking if we can build a building, basically. So first off, we get the selected building from the building store, which is a class we created that basically just stores all the building classes, which is just a class that has width and height, name, and sprite for the building, and has a load of buttons that we just basically list to set selected. So yeah, you should know how to use the GUI button. It's not tile masterclass. So basically, if the selected building isn't null, so you have clicked one of those GUI buttons and we got a building selected. If it has a building script on it, which again is this, which has the info on the building, so width, height, name, the sprite, and stuff. So if that's not equal to null, so by some horrible error you haven't put one on or whatever, then we use the method we'll go over next. So get multiple tiles from coordinates. So basically, this is a method that just uses the mouse position and the width and height to work out the section of grid we want to use, and then we have a building placing cursor, which we set to, which basically is just a sprite that follows the mouse cursor's position, just to draw the building. So we set the sprite. It's just a game object basically that follows it and has a sprite render on it. So we set its sprite to be whatever the current building sprite is, and we set the position to be the mouse position converted to world point. So converting from screen coordinates to world coordinates. Then we create a new color because we can't edit the individual like RGB values of a color on the sprite renderer, so we have to create a new one. So basically, this just creates a semi-transparent white color, and we set that to be the cursor, the building cursor's color. And if we've got a method here that returns a boolean, if the location the mouse cursor is good for a building, it returns true. So in that case, we just keep it at white. But if it's not, we keep it at red. Pretty much. And yeah. And basically, so it's R, G, B, and A. The alpha channel like vector make textures semi-transparent or sprites or whatever. So that'd be a cool trick if you wanted to use that. Next, so if all these conditions have been met, so there is a valid building and the location the cursor is at is a valid site to construct the building, then we build the building. We use this basically just places the building game object and rewrites the tiles. So saying like the ones under the building are not walkable anymore, so the pathfinding will not account for them when looking for a path. Alright, so the get multiple tiles from coordinates, which we used in the input get left click for building placement. Basically, it is a method that it takes in the building's width and height of the tile and uses that and the mouse position to work out where in the overall grid of tiles what kind of like section do we want to cut out and get a return, so to place the building on. So basically what it does, it tries, it modifies. So we use a try and catch just to make sure that we don't crash or anything. We add 2 to the width and height, which basically just makes sure that we can have a ring of tiles around it that we can walk about. We use the selection raycast we did a couple of episodes ago to set this tile at mouse point to get the what will be the center tile of the grid of coordinates that we're getting. And we get its coordinates from the tile master class here. And basically, we use this isSelection in grid range method, which all this does is it takes basically it's the mouse coordinates and the width and height for the building again, but this time it's modified so that we're accounting for the ring we want around it. And basically, we just divide these by 2. So say if the center coordinate .x minus half the width, or because we're dividing it in 2 by here, is less than 0, we are technically part of the grid will be outside the valid range of tiles because there won't be any tiles there. So that'll return false. Likewise, it'll do a similar thing for the height. And again, for the other end of the axis, so if the center coordinates .x plus half the width, because we divided it in half, is if it's more than or equal to the grid dimensions .x, so that is how wide it'll be. But remember, it only goes up to 24 because we start at 0. So if it's more than or equal to it, then we're saying, all right, we're too far on the other axis. So that's, again, not valid. And we do a similar thing for the y. So if none of those conditions are met, we return true. So, all right, we got a valid range of tiles. And if the range of tiles is valid, then we use the width divided by 2 and the height divided by 2 to get what will be the start. I think it's the top left and the bottom right tiles of the grid we'll get from the grid generator. So we just pass those in and we'll get the grid. And then we set selected. So basically, it'll just get these tiles out of the grid, so for the building and the edge around it, and then clear whatever it is. But if we don't meet this condition, so it's not a valid, we'll just, if it's not a valid selection of grid, if it's not like a valid sort of section of tiles, then we'll just clear selected, so there won't be anything selected pretty much. And yeah, that is what we do to get multiple tiles from the width and height of the building. Okay, so the boolean we use to check if a location is valid to construct a building. Basically, we need to go through a number of checks to make sure that the grid of tiles we have selected is right and doesn't have any problems with it. So first thing we check, is there are there tiles selected basically? So if there is basically 0 tiles selected, we return false. We're saying, all right, maybe the mouse cursor is not in range of the tiles, or is not selecting one. Or maybe some of the tiles aren't, or maybe it's like on a tile, but half the tiles are not on the grid, so it won't like get any of the tiles. So basically, we get none. We say, all right, fuck it, it's not a valid location. Bye. So, but if we do have a selection of tiles, we'll go through each of the tiles, and we're checking. All right, are they walkable? If any of these tiles are walkable, or not walkable, sorry, then we return false, saying, all right, this isn't a valid location. But if they are all walkable, then we get the lower bound of the x and y and the higher bound of x and y, which we can just do by getting the first and last tiles, because we get them in order because of how the grid generator works. Or grid generator, like getting tiles from grid coordinates we pass in, because it works out what the lowest are and what the highest are, which is good. And sorry, just get on. What we do, go through all these tiles, and if any of the basically this, if we're checking if any of the x and y's meet the lower bound, so we have to do x, then y, and then y, then x, and basically that's any tile that meets these conditions, any combination of these 4 conditions. So say if the x was on the lower bound, y was on the high bound, or x was on high, y on low, whatever. If it's not walkable, we return false. So saying, all right, since we can't, like the edge of the what was it? Sorry. Basically, we're checking if the edge of that we're wanting to remain walkable after we built it is not walkable, then we return false. And we have to do the same the other way around for some reason. I'm not sure if I've just goofed here, but it works. So we'll just keep it in now and I'll test it for next time. So again, just check. If it's not walkable, we return false, saying, all right, we can't build here. But then if all these conditions are all right, so it's all walkable and we have actually got tiles and that, then yeah, we're good. So we return true. So we're saying like it is a location that is valid for construction. So finally, we've got a similar method to the last one, but this one actually creates the building. So first off, again, we're getting the lower and higher bounds of the x and y. Then we go through them all and we check, but this time we're not checking to make sure they're walkable. We're just saying, all right, if it basically checks if this tile is on the edge in any instance, then we just skip by it and we're just debugging, like saying, all right, we're keeping the tile walkable. But if it doesn't meet any of these conditions, we're setting it to not be walkable. So the pathfinding won't account for it. And we're like, these were the tiles that were getting marked in turquoise, I believe. I know they are. I don't have to believe. So say those tiles do not meet the bounds of the X or Y. They're not on one of the bounds, so they are turned purple and made unwalkable, pretty much. And yeah, and finally we've got the code that actually creates the building in game. So first off, we get the get a vector for the position of the middle tile in the grid we have selected. So basically we just get the last element in the list, or last index of the list, and divide that by 2 to get the middle point. And since all the tiles are selected in order, we're just fine to do that. It won't like create a bug or whatever of weird building placement. And we then create this building, so by instantiation. So we instantiate the currently selected building at the position and set the rotation to be 0, 0, 0. And we store this in built. Then we add a sprite renderer to built. We set this sprite renderer's sprite to be the building sprite in the building script, specified in the building script. Set the sorting order to 10, so it appears above stuff like the grid of tiles and whatnot. And then we add a collider, and we set the buildings. We just set it active because the free in like these prefabs that we're using are just not active at the moment, so we need to set it to active. And then we clear the selected, and that is pretty much it. And also we have a method to basically control whether we should see the display building cursor, which is what you see when you are building Summit. So create buildings. So basically the like semi-transparent building. We've got a method to control that. So basically if the selection mode is create buildings, then we'll set it active to true. So the game object building place cursor, which is just the game object here, and stored here as a public game object. If we are placing buildings, we set it to true, else we set it to false. I'm calling it here. And yeah, that's pretty much it for the code. Except for, actually, let's go with the building class here, building store here, just in case you want to have a look at that. And yeah, that's it. Okay, so that was making buildings and interacting with the grid. I'll probably do a few more, or maybe one more actually, of like changing tiles out and whatnot in the grid, which will be fun. Yeah, and so just as a final like just overview, got selection manager was on here, which was there before, so you don't need it. Don't need to know. Basically got a game controller that's new with a building store, which basically just stores all the buildings, and then the buildings are just stored as their own child objects there. Got a building placement cursor, which is assigned to the selection manager. We've got a new enumerator, which you can just change in the inspector, and you probably have some kind of coordinate to it to be it as well, but not coordinate, button. Yeah, and as a final overview, here's what we did today. We just create buildings and we make sure that they're actually on the grid to place them, and that there is a valid coordinate, and that there is like an area around them where a friggin' AI can like navigate around, so they're not all fucked. So I'll just show you. See, the AI can navigate around buildings you placed in the world. Isn't that good? Yeah, so cheers for watching. Like, comment, subscribe. Go check out my stuff on Itch.io, so like Loud or Quiet, the top-down shooter assets, the 2D crime game, whatever, because they are really good. And I also made some like a little thing to do custom input. No, not custom input. Rebindable like keys in Unity, because that's not a feature already. So I did a little thing to that. There's also a video for it, and a download like £1.50 or whatever your regional equivalent is. Probably very cheap because the pound is in the shitter. So take advantage of that. Just saying. So yeah, cheers for watching and goodbye.